Hello, folks. Welcome to a special edition Sox Machine Live. I am your host, Josh Nelson. As we are streaming live on Friday, August 7th, 2026. Typically, we have a podcast episode that we record for you guys at a video show. But I had to fly out to San Francisco for a family medical emergency. So thank you so much for watching this live stream. A lot has happened for the Chicago White Sox as they just wrapped up their series against the Boston Red Sox. And man, maybe the less we talk about what happened in Boston, the better, but it did not go well again for the White Sox against the Boston Red Sox, as the White Sox were once again swept and a really devastating 12-11 loss in 13 innings last night. And in the 6 games against the Red Sox, of course, the White Sox go 0-6. They only scored 15 runs this year against the Boston Red Sox, and they allowed 45. So you just do the math, and that is a negative 30 run differential. I guess the silver lining for the Chicago White Sox, however, is that when you take a look at the American League Central standings, the Cleveland Guardians really fumbled the bag as they got swept at home by the New York Mets. A really head scratching series result for the Cleveland Guardians. So the White Sox still have a 3-game lead over the Guardians, but the Minnesota Twins have caught the Guardians. The Twins actually hold the tiebreaker against Cleveland. So right now, Minnesota would be in second place with a 57-59 record. They're the Tigers, even though they traded Tarek Skubal and Casey Mize away. There they are, 56-59, 3.5 games back of the White Sox, and the Kansas City Royals still in last place, 20 games below 500, 12 games back of the Chicago White Sox. So it's a big weekend for the White Sox as the Guardians come into town, but we do need to chat about what happened in Boston as we got a chance to see the new guys the White Sox acquired via trade. And joining me on this edition of Sox Machine Live is Sox Machine's beat reporter James Fegan and managing editor Jim Margulis. And hello, gents. And James, I'll start with you. Again, the new guys joining the Chicago White Sox shortly after the trade deadline. Again, Luis Castillo, Huascar Brazoban, Joey Bart, and Bren Doyle. And of a lot of attention on Luis Castillo because he was the big fish at the trade deadline. He only goes 4 innings in his start last night, gives up 5 earned runs on 6 hits. He did strike out 5, only walked 1, but he only threw 71 pitches. And I guess that is where I want to start, James, because I really felt like the whole point of the White Sox acquiring Luis Castillo at the trade deadline is to help with the starting rotation and to help give it depth and to take on some of those innings. But if Castillo only goes 71 pitches, doesn't that kind of defeat the purpose of the White Sox acquiring him?
Sure. I don't think it was a pitch count limitation issue. I think it's kind of what my concern was when the underlying argument was, he can more stably provide bulk innings. Is that if he's ineffective, he's not going to go that deeply. His last 4 starts for the Mariners before he got traded were all 90 plus in terms of pitch count. It's simply like this guy struggled with the second time to the order. He didn't have consistently effective secondaries. He kind of until the eighth hitter was like dictating the tempo, which is like a lively fastball, but then didn't have like this big counter move on the second turns of the order and was getting knocked around. And why do you sign up for a third trip to the order? Which then is the fundamental issue you were ducking with Fetty, where you were just giving him this hard out 2 times to the order overall. But Castillo certainly has the capacity to go longer and deeper into games. But if he's struggling and they don't have the kind of adjustment necessary to get him back to his best self, then yeah, there's going to be shorter outings because he's given up 5 runs. He had a couple. I thought especially the sliders to the one that Wong hit out and the one that Monasterio doubled on obviously wasn't like hit incredibly hard, but wasn't a bat missing slider. We're pretty well located, low and away from right-handed hitters, and still got hit, which kind of reflects the larger reality of him looking over at his numbers before he comes on, where the slider's whiff rate is way down. The changeup isn't like a major factor that you see him like getting through outings with, and so like yeah, he still has this four seamer, two seamer like mix that's both like 95 plus that looks pretty imposing, but in terms of showing people a different look that's really effective, he hasn't had that consistently over the course of the season. And if he doesn't do that, then yeah, he won't get through 6 innings very easily with like leads intact. So I don't think it's like necessarily like, man, they're going to be putting him like 4 or 5 and dive every time out with their intention. But if they don't get him right, that's effectively what they still have. So um, yeah, it doesn't serve the purpose if he's not good.
Sure. I just wonder, is this a situation that maybe from top to the manager's office, can you just have Castillo pitch 90 pitches? Like that's not a White Sox thing, right? They're not. Chris Getz is not going to mandate that you must have Luis Castillo eat 5 innings or more every single outing.
I think Getz gives Venable a admirable, certainly in 2026, level of leeway to try to manage the win the game. I think pulling
Okay.
Luis Castillo to give up 5 runs in 4 innings is trying to win the game. Not we need a certain sort of length to manage what we need or get return on our investment sort of decision.
Got it. Okay. So it's a bummer that Luis Castillo didn't eat up any innings. Things went really sideways for the White Sox late in that game simply just because they ran out of bench guys and they were running out of pitchers going into extra innings. Eric Fetty and Chris Murphy had to pitch in the game. And if they got into the 14th inning, I have no idea, Jim, who would have pitched for the White Sox. But for all these new guys, the White Sox got some bad luck as Joey Bart was hit in the hand and he has pretty much a fractured knuckle. So he's going to miss some time. And it's been reported that Edgar Caro is going to be rejoining the White Sox. So before the deadline, I was worried about the White Sox catching situation. It's Drew Romo and Edgar Caro. Couple games later, guess what? It's Drew Romo and Edgar Caro, thanks to some bad injury luck. So, what do you make of the White Sox catching situation and the brief time that we saw Joey Bart with the White Sox?
It almost feels like they need to trade Drew Romo just to get away from this cycle where they keep going back and forth with a potential solution they think will rectify their underwater catching mix. Like they had Kyle Teal come back, and then he lasted 19 games and then got hurt again with a high ankle sprain. And then you had Joey Bart come in, and expectations weren't anywhere close for Bart as they were for Teal. Like this was not this is going to be the bat that the lineup needs, and the kind of presence behind the plates with the athleticism to catch and throw and call games. This is more Joey Bart is fine. We're not going to demand too much from Joey Bart. This is clearly a stopgap situation. And even with expectations muted, and even with Romo figuring that he's still going to be part of the mix, they still ended up where they started or where they've been for most of the season with Romo and Caro over and over and over again. So it, man plans and God laughs, and it certainly seems like a Twilight Zone type situation of just no matter how many doors you enter, no matter how many corners you turn, you end up in the same room, looking at the same thing. And yeah, it's certainly the pressure is, I guess the way you look at it, the pressure is either off or on. It's either pressure's off because they did what they could, and so it's Romo and Caro, and you kind of shrug, you get what you get, no matter the efforts, and it's just the way the season unfolds. Or the pressure is on, and that's Caro was supposed to be somebody this year, and they've shown with the playing time allocations, no matter how poorly Romo is hit, that they preferred him behind the plates, catching 2 out of 3 or 2 out of 4 every series. And it seems like Romo's bat has been, barely tenable or untenable, depending on how much everybody else is hitting. So it does seem like this particular road does go through Edgar Caro at least a little bit, as much as the White Sox have been trying to resist it.
Drew Roma did throw out two base runners, filling in for Joey Bart in Thursday's loss. I thought that was pretty impressive by Romo. The Red Sox were not afraid to test the White Sox in this series as far as stolen base attempts. So I thought that was impressive by Romo to come in and be able to throw a couple runners out. But yeah, offensively, not much at all. You could read Sox Machine's month in a box that Jim does every month to recap July. And the production from the catcher perspective for the White Sox definitely was not improving as the season progressed until Kyle Teal was in the lineup. But even with Teal in the lineup, Teal was still breaking off a lot of rust. So it really comes the White Sox just seem to be spinning in circles right now with the catching position until somebody gets healthy, either Kyle Teal or Joey Bart. James, we haven't heard as far as how extensive this injury is for Joey Bart, right? We don't know how long he's going to be missing time.
They have not provided an estimate. We know it's specifically he broke a fifth metatarsal, and I can confirm that Caro's getting called up, so it's clearly a roster move. But no, we have not been given a timeline on it yet.
All right. I guess to wrap up as far as what happened against Boston, what do you guys make of what the Red Sox have done? It is, Jim, the last 36 games, a 31-5 record. I think, and rightfully so, White Sox fans are just throwing their hands up, be like, hey, everyone's losing to Boston. So this isn't something to be really concerned about. I mean, Boston just went into Dodger Stadium and swept the Los Angeles Dodgers after they had a big trade deadline. So what do you make of the Boston Red Sox?
It feels like they don't necessarily deserve the outcome based on Craig Breslow, the kind of dysfunction we've heard about, especially with Alex Cora. This it doesn't seem earned based on the kind of harmony you see from like other front offices, like the White Sox, for example. Kind of the ideal communication between Chris Getz and Will Venable. It's all going great. Red Sox seem to be the opposite of that. So if you want a uh, healthy results stemming from a healthy process, you would think that this is not the ideal situation or anything you want to emulate as an organization. But watching them play, certainly the pitching's been there for a while. They have a pretty deep, talented pitching staff to where they're able to trade pitching for Curtis Mead. Like they have the rare surplus to deal away from, even if it's like a controversial return with Mead, and then Mead gets hurt. So I guess Bart is like a little bit of balance in the universe because they lost a guy after 2 games because of a hit by pitch, and now the White Sox do as well. The lineup though is just impressive, and it is like a classic Boston feel without necessarily the marquee talent, like the household names, just in terms of how hard they make pitchers work. Like Sean Burke, we've seen Burke like in this version of him where he doesn't necessarily have the best breaking ball command, but like either uh, fastball command gets him through or curveball command gets him through. Like he can get by with one pitch leading the way and get enough from the other ones to get through 5, 6 with fairly low pitch count. But this is a case where he had pretty good fastball command, but even though he was getting ahead of the counts, like he was doing okay. Just a lot of foul balls, a lot of 2-out hits to extend innings to rack it up. And so, yeah, I think 1 through 9, maybe towards 8 and 9, it gets a little bit thin, but they just have a lineup that's in the classic Red Sox sense when they were you kind of money ball with money, with high OBP guys and power guys and guys who could take advantage of Fenway Park's dimensions. Just a really tough lineup to get through, even when the pitch command is okay. Like even guys are executing pitches, it's still 20 pitch innings, and then 20 pitch innings times 2, 20 pitch innings times 3, and then all of a sudden you do have to go to the bullpen earlier than you want.
James, what do you make of the Red Sox torrid run?
I don't know. It makes no sense to me. The pitching has been good all season, like Jim said. But from what they were doing offensively, I thought like Willie Abreu has been better than his numbers this season. So to see him like kind of be unstoppable, that makes sense. But earlier in this year, if you took Wilson Contreras out of this lineup, like they wouldn't do anything, and now it's seeing like the White Sox just be completely unable to get Andrew Monasterio out or Anthony Siegler or Nick Sogard, just giving them like great at bats all throughout. Like, is this a team wide heater? Like, certainly they've got Caleb Durbin back a lot better form than he was first in the half, or like, did they really need to fire their hitting coach and they did the right thing by overhauling their coaching staff to some degree? I don't know, but it's kind of surreal. Like Connor Wong was someone that like the whole fan base wanted to throw out of an airplane last year because of his offense, and like now he's hitting league average again, which to be fair, like Connor Wong was looked like a decent hitting catcher earlier in his career, and maybe last year was really the aberration. But like it's a lot of like they're all their role players just being on 10 offensively in a way that like this was supposed to be the weakness of the team is like the lack of depth of the lineup, and instead you're getting guys who probably weren't in their plan A. It's like they have like four Tristan Peters, first half Tristan Peters, like in their lineup right now. Who guys are like, yeah, the bones of like a decent role player in there, were maybe always in there, but why are they all like mashing to unstoppable degrees right at this moment? Obviously, like the first half of the season shows that it doesn't work all the time, and we overact small sample stuff all the time. But it was really incredible just the degree to like an offense that doesn't seem like they should be at the height of their powers. With no Contreras, no Roman Anthony, just the only people who can get them out on the Sox staff is like Sean Burke, working extremely hard, Grant Taylor working extremely hard, and like one pretty good Brian Hudson inning. It's been kind of freaky. So right now they certainly look like, and it's not a hard AL to quickly rise up the hierarchy of, but they
Right.
look like top three in the AL at the moment pretty easily. And if you are skeptical on Aaron Judge coming back, you could probably convince yourself, or you worry about like the role player bottom half of the Rays offense. You can probably convince yourself to move them up a certain spot in the hierarchy from that top three as well.
Uh, that's a good point, James. Like if to do the power rankings, which Buster Olney kind of went a little viral on baseball social media when they were trying to power rank the top 5 American League teams. And he had Seattle in the mix, Cleveland. I think he listed them as number 1. It's not looking good for both Buster's power rankings, but I do feel like I wonder if Boston is now the team to beat in the American League, even though the season were to end today, they're the 5th seed. Like they would start the postseason on the road, but to make up as much ground as they have, they were 14 and a half games back of the Yankees before this torrid run. Now they're just a half game back. They're definitely in the race of the American League East. That division is now a true 3-team race between the Rays, Yankees, and Red Sox. And whoever finishes third is going to have to start the postseason on the road. Boston has really made this American League very interesting, and it does not matter as far as the quality of the team. They are just destroying everyone in their path. So, for White Sox fans trying to find some solace of what happened this week in Boston, there you go. Everyone's in the same boat right now when they're going up against the mighty Red Sox. We're going to take a quick break for a word from our sponsors, but after the break, we're going to be previewing the critical series this weekend in Chicago as the Cleveland Guardians visit the Chicago White Sox in an American League Central Showdown next on the Sox Machine podcast.
Todd, Father, are you hitting some games this summer? What's the deal?
Oh, of course, and it's real simple. Scotty Braun, you know how it is. You go to SeatGeek and you can find any deal you want in any section you want. Even if the game's sold out, go to SeatGeek and you'll find something that you love, affordable for your family, that you can enjoy anywhere, anytime, at any ballpark and stadium you want. Enjoy it. It's the best opportunity to go see a beautiful game of baseball.
And that's the thing. You can be so last minute. SeatGeek is the official ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball. They have you covered for all of your baseball ticket needs the entire summer. They also have over 70,000 events on SeatGeek. That includes concerts, festivals, all kinds of sporting events. So go check it out right now, FT fam. The code is Territory10 for 10% off your next set of MLB tickets at SeatGeek. That's 10% off with promo code Territory10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app, and then the code automatically is added to your account so you can use it later.
I'm with Chicago shortstop Colson Montgomery. You're known as Team First.
Yeah, I've always worked hard for the team rather than myself.
I get it. If you've been injured, my team is here to help. Call 312-6-million. Injury law made personal. That's Aiken Law.
And like I mentioned, the Cleveland Guardians now visit Chicago. The Guardians are 57 and 59 on the season. They've lost their last 3 games, again, being swept by the New York Mets at home. In their last 10, the Guardians are slipping. They are 3 and 7. Away from Cleveland, though, they've been playing a lot better. They're 29 and 28 this season in road games. Your pitching probables for this series Friday night. This is a first pitch time of 6:40 p.m. Central Time. Also, Ja Rule is going to be having a post-game concert. Parker Messick will take the ball for the Guardians against Noah Schultz. Saturday, this is a national broadcast. It'll be on Fox, as it'll be Gavin Williams taking the ball for the Guardians against Anthony Kay for the White Sox. Saturday is also Ozzie Guillen's jersey retirement ceremony. That retirement ceremony, if you are attending the game on Saturday, is slated to start at 5:15 p.m. Central Time. So a very big celebration on Saturday at Rate Field. Also, Sox Machine will be having our 20th anniversary tailgate. We'll talk more about that in this stream. And then on Sunday at 1:10 p.m. Central Time, Joey Cantillo will take the ball for the Guardians. First time he'll be facing the White Sox this season. And Davis Martin, the Dart, will take the ball for the Chicago White Sox. And like I mentioned, this is a very big series for the White Sox and also for the Guardians. I feel like there's a lot of pressure, James, on the Guardians coming to this series, especially when reading this morning, a lot of Guardians outlets feel like Cleveland really dropped the ball here, especially with the White Sox having a tough series against Boston to make up no ground. If Cleveland stumbles again and the White Sox were to sweep the Guardians, the White Sox clinched the season series. So that's another tiebreaker that Cleveland will lose. But from a White Sox perspective, with just how taxed the bullpen is after this series against Boston and a late night having to fly back home from Boston, this is a big game for Noah Schultz. So this is a great time for him to have the best game of his young career, right?
It's never a bad time to have best game of your career. So sure. I suppose like if he had the best game of his career, like second week of spring training, that would seem like a waste, but then we'd probably do a whole podcast segment about whether he should be the opening day starter, and that would provide us a week of content. So never a bad time. That said, his last start against the Rays certainly looked, shortlist contender for his best in the major leagues. In terms of strike throwing, getting weak ground balls, the way that kind of looked like himself in the minors, and you heard him post game kind of reiterating that he felt like he was pitching the way that he did when he was successful in the minors, working east west, getting the cutter or the sinker in on right-handers, and then playing the cutter off of that. Only really working right-handers in so they could then throw changeups off the outer edge of the plate and get whiffs off that, like he did the junior Caminero. He's asserting himself like, I'm an east-west pitcher. That's where I'm best, is something he was saying, post-game after that. And with the Guardians being a lefty-heavy lineup, you would think that this is an opportunity where he could do that successfully. It's usually more opposite-handed hitters that, he gets stressed on that he needs to work vertically or pop the four-seamer in to be viable. You would think against a lot of the likes of like Stephen Kwan or I don't even know if the Guardians will play like Nathaniel Lowe against them. Like, these are guys he could kind of go the width of the plate on, work sinkers inside, throw kind of maybe the more east-west sweeper against and be effective. The Guardians don't necessarily, until Jose Ramirez is up and running and functioning and looking as dangerous as old self, don't have a ton of right-handed weapons to really counter him or scare him with. That said, they just traded for Joe Adell, who a flawed hitter, but certainly a powerful one. And I don't want to botch his name because I think he's really good, but they just called up Angel Hanao, who I think is going to be the bane of the existence of this part of town for probably the next, it's the Guardians. So let's say 4 to 5 years before he gets too pricey in arbitration. But he's someone who could be interesting in this series for sure, even though it's like, I don't know, his third, fourth, and fifth career game. So maybe some reasonable expectations there, and also some ground ball tendencies that Schultz would look to exploit to some degree. But yeah, Schultz needs length. Hey, talking about someone like you're not sure how long they let him go, even when things are running, more so than Luis Castillo, is Schultz, that you haven't seen him like get pushed to 100 pitches or anything like that. Does he do that if he gets through 5-6 innings without much damage, when you don't have really much to turn through the bullpen besides maybe Sean Newcomb or back-to-back days from Jordan Hicks or Brian Hudson, which probably is limited to an inning? That'll be interesting to see. But you would think this is, I haven't checked the numbers today, but a lot of this season, the Guardians have spent being the worst scoring offense in the league. This would be a nice time for Schultz seems like he should match up well if things are functioning to kind of exploit that.
So then on the flip side, Jim, because of the uncertainty when it comes to the White Sox bullpen and their usage, we're assuming Sean Newcomb could be available for the White Sox today, but they are a tired group. This would be a great weekend as well for the White Sox offense to duplicate what they did on Thursday against Boston, which is put up a bunch of runs to at least build up that margin of error for White Sox pitchers.
Yeah, it's just a tough slate of pitchers to do that against with Messick and Williams and Cantillo. But going through the last month month in a box for July, it was kind of fascinating in terms of run differential. They were well in the black. Runs scored, they were top half in the league. In terms of OPS or WRC plus, the slash line, they were bottom 10 offense. And I think that reflects maybe what you're seeing when it comes to the White Sox. When they're on, they can score runs in bunches. They can get to a bullpen early. They can make them throw position players, put the game away. When it's not working, a lot of close games, a lot of innings where they have to rely on a walk and a hit by pitch and try to string together 3 at bats in a row, and it doesn't quite work, and they have a bad performance in runners in scoring position because all these plate appearances are so hard won. So uh, it's a part of the season, I think, where we spent the last few days since the trade deadline talking about the White Sox approach and getting right-handed bats, but maybe not right-handed bats that are instant solutions. Like Brenton Doyle seems like a project. Joey Bart, before he got hurt, was not somebody you expected a whole lot from. And this could be a series with Messick and Cantillo going from left side to where you feel like maybe did they do enough against lefties? Are they still this kind of lineup that with Sam Antonacci out, with Tristan Peters being the second half version who's not offering a whole lot and needing a whole lot of Luis Angel Acuna, and you have Colson Montgomery being better against lefties and kind of needing that weird mix. Do they have enough against lefties to routinely compete or not have to rely on great pitching performances or great bullpen performances to gut games out? So yeah, it's a series where the Guardians offense has struggled all year, but the White Sox haven't looked great as of late. So, I think all the games but one so far this season have been decided by 1 run with the White Sox and Guardians, and the lone exception was a 2-run game.
Yep.
And it does feel like one way or another, be it like a couple of disappointing starting performances from each side or just lack of offense throughout, that it could be more of the same of just low scoring, close games that make both fan bases tear their hair out.
And that's exactly what the White Sox need, right? Especially after Thursday night, Jim. Another gut wrenching game.
It's like, we've heard a lot about how Trevor Richards will take the ball at any point. Like, this would be a game, like if he pitches today, just like, let's test that. Let's test how much you want to pitch, Trevor Richards. Gonna need 2 more from you again.
Yeah, when they're up 15-1, right? That's fine. They're up 15-1 heading to 8th inning. I'll be fine. But Saturday, again, big day for the Chicago White Sox. Ozzie Guillen will have his jersey retirement ceremony. We at Sox Machine will be celebrating our 20th anniversary as well. We'll provide a little bit more details of what we're going to be doing this weekend on the South Side of Chicago on Friday and Saturday. But that Saturday broadcast, being a national broadcast, will be on Fox, and MLB on Fox is streaming on Fox 1. The race to October starts now, and Fox 1 has your front row seat to the wildest walk-offs, lights-out pitching, and clutch plays all season long. Follow every can't-miss matchup as teams battle for a spot in the postseason, then stream the 2026 World Series live on Fox 1, at home or on the go, live or on demand. Never miss a moment. Stream now. Start your Fox One 3-day free trial today at fox1.com. And with that game being on Fox, a big pitching matchup for Cleveland. They're going to have Gavin Williams, one of their aces that lead that staff. Very impressive arsenal against White Sox hitters. So I ask you guys, with that big matchup, White Sox hitters against Gavin Williams, James Fegan, who is your pick to click to have a successful game against Gavin Williams on Fox? Try now.
I would like maybe less so a pick to click as hey, they really need this to succeed. But Munetaka Murakami is slugging 621 against four seamers this season. He also misses them a ton because he misses everything a ton. That's the nature of his swing. But Gavin Williams is a big, four seam guy. He uses a sweeper a bit more, which Murakami doesn't do great against, but you don't see a ton of like right-handers using sweepers against left-handers in a way where like I think the big challenge is like, is this strength versus strength, whether he can kind of get on top and drive, sweeper four seamers from Gavin Williams, who obviously throws extremely hard, is part of it more than really even the shape of his four seamer. And Murakami has been one of the most productive hitters against 95 plus in the league. Again, not because he makes contact with it at a particularly high rate. It's a rather low one, but he tends to do a lot when he does. So with Cleveland's offense, with their preference to low-scoring games, a couple of big swings from Murakami can go a long way, figuratively and literally. This would seem like, as far as like right-handed four-seamers, much more so than maybe Colson Montgomery's swing is shaped to take advantage of. Murakami seems like the guy to do something against Williams if they're going to do something.
All right, so James likes Murakami. Jim, who is your pick to click against Gavin Williams on Fox?
At the risk of simply going with the hottest hitter, Chase Mydroth, last 25 games, is a 300, 400, 500 hitter in terms of his slash line. Really seems like he's coming to his own. When you looked at his AAA profile, great plate discipline, a lot of walks, not a lot of strikeouts, working deep counts, showing a little bit of pop. Seemed like when he got to the majors, pitchers didn't necessarily respect the power enough to not attack him. And so you saw the strikeouts tick up, the walks tick down, and he's just more of an ordinary bat with a good glove at second base. But somebody who might need platoon help or might need to be replaced at some point, be more of a utility guy. But yeah, last 25 games, we saw it in Boston, just pulling the ball in the air to left field. Williams is not somebody who kills righties as a righty. He's more of even splits, or he's not especially a weapon against righties. So perhaps Mydroth in his current form, where he just looks like he's locked in and really the best version of himself when it comes to bringing pitchers towards him and driving the ball. It's certainly a tall ask for him to keep it going against a pitcher of Williams' caliber, but in this current form, he's doing as much as anybody right now to do that.
My pick to click is Miguel Vargas. Vargas has the most success against Gavin Williams in the White Sox lineup. Miguel Vargas is 4 for 8 in his career against Gavin Williams with a home run. If you're also looking for any other type of success for White Sox hitters, Andrew Benintendi does have one hit against Gavin Williams, but that was a big hit as he drove in 3 RBIs. It'll be a tough test for the White Sox, but again, Guardians White Sox Saturday at 6:10 p.m. Central Time on Fox, or you can watch the game on Fox1.com. And the other big game for the White Sox is on Sunday. And the reason why this is a big game is because, James, I think for White Sox fans, and I think that this is a fair concern, is what is going on with Davis Martin. In his last starts, 7 starts, Davis Martin has only pitched 34 and a third innings. It is a 6.55 earned run average with just 20 strikeouts to 14 walks. It feels like this is a big start for Martin. There was a talk about him tipping pitches possibly in his last outing against Boston. So I ask you, James, what should White Sox fans expect from Davis Martin on Sunday against Cleveland?
I don't know, man. I think I'd flip the question to you to what games do you think are not big games? Because it seems like we don't.
Well, every
really...
game is from now on for the White Sox. Yes, is a big game. Yes, maybe not the ones against Cincinnati so much, but this one definitely carries more weight.
So he sounds like he felt that there was a tip that they identified against the Red Sox. Not that it fixing on the fly got him through 6 innings. Frankly, the Red Sox hit against White Sox like everybody's tipping to a degree. Martin said that at the All-Star break, he was irritated with the level of walks and the kind of like horizontal misses he was having, and that's what he went back to pitching works in Oklahoma City to iron out, to be in the zone more often. Running an article about that right before he gave up 6 runs in the first inning, set me up to be epically clowned on a social media app. But that's life. He was in the zone. What's kind of concerned me with both that outing and hasn't necessarily been addressed by him getting in the zone more is that, like, at his peak when he was dominating in May, you were seeing more of the spikes of upper 90s and seeing like a couple outings where he, like, I want to say like Angels, and I would definitely want to say a Cubs one where he looked like really like next level in terms of his stuff. You were seeing him like average 95 with his fastball in those outings, and more recently it's in that 93 territory where he's throwing some singers in 91. And it's just like not seeing like the upper tier of his velocity band very frequently. And yeah, that feels like a simplistic and crude way to like generalize, and I'm sure he'd talk about how more pitching execution is like what's really important at the end of the day. But like there's a pretty strong correlation between just being more hittable even when you're locating and just like not seeing the velocity that he's touted at times, and having to be a bit more fine against teams that can really have thunder. Now maybe the Guardians are, as well as the Blue Jays were out of the break, are kind of a welcome exemption from that to some degree, where he can get soft contact or get more you know contact he can work around a bit more. But in terms of like a guy who everyone was talking about, like at least in terms of coaching staff and managing him, like, oh, he's racked up a lot of innings in the first half, or we want to give him like a break at the All-Star break. Seeing like his velo kind of tail off as he heads into like kind of the upper bounds of like innings he's handled before in a season, you wonder, like, is that something that can be addressed through mechanics? Is that something that can shape up with time, or is that something that like he's going to have to like work around? And it looks more like the Davis Martin of the past 2 years, which is like a reliable back end starter, but someone who really has to be on his game and can't get away with as many mistakes, or just challenge guys as aggressively as he was doing in the first half of the season, where it just seemed like he had picked up to a new level. Things like this turn, Sean Burke obviously started throwing harder midseason by finding a mechanical thing, and if Martin was able to do that, that could be a game changer. But like until we see something else or better samples, or we just get fooled by him flattening a terrible offense and convince he's fixed, it's kind of like, all right, that's kind of the thing I have my eye on as far as like, can he tick up results wise until before this ticks up, or find some other thing that gets him an edge, that gets him back to the career best performance he was doing on the first 2 months of the season.
No, that's good stuff, James. So that's something to watch for those that are watching the video or listening to the podcast recording. The velocity for Davis Martin, especially with this heater on Sunday. But to wrap up, as far as this episode, Jim, I feel like this weekend is also going to be a good test for Will Venable, the manager. Not the best situation that he's coming into. Your team is exhausted, a gut wrenching loss, and now they have to fly back home. And I'm sure they don't need a lot of motivation to get up and get ready to take on the Cleveland Guardians. But I do feel like this is a good test on how you try to manage as far as the roster and get their heads straight, and trying to, not to use a Pedro Grifol term, but flush out what happened in Boston and start anew in Chicago. So I'm curious to see on how Will Venable and the White Sox react this weekend against the Guardians at home.
Yeah, it's been a theme, or at least early in the season, first half, when the White Sox had such a home-heavy success, win percentage, and they would go on a road trip, lose both series, come back to Chicago, and think, is the bottom going to fall out? Is this the rut that kind of sinks them under 500? And sure enough, we are into August, and they still haven't lost 4 games in a row. That will be tested tonight. They have another 3-game losing streak. But they've been in this position before, and we've seen the White Sox talk about they're not struggling. They're going to lose 3 games in a row over the course of a season. There's not going to be this kind of slump that encompasses the whole team. You're not going to see this team get down. You're going to see Mike Vassell wave his wand, and you're going to see another breakout performance. Everybody is more or less back where they need to be, and then they win like both home series, and they finish another month with a winning record. So we've seen the White Sox in this position before. I think this is the most extreme straits they've been in, in terms of just how gassed they should be based on pitcher usage, based on the way the Red Sox put them through the ringer, the way the White Sox have to use every pitcher, and Eric Fetty in extra innings. So this will be tested. If they do win tonight, then yeah, I guess they're never going to lose 4 games in a row. The rest of the season, you can more or less just try to figure out like how many games they win in between 3-game losing streaks. But yeah, I think they're due for one 4-game skid, maybe even 5, like every team does it. So if they lose tonight, say, like not the worst thing in the world, I think they probably have to have a game at some point this weekend where they might have to use a reliever they don't want to use in a certain situation to get through, have to take a bet or a gamble on somebody to hope that they can get a scoreless inning when maybe you wouldn't want somebody pitching the 7th or 8th of a 1-run game. But yeah, they've certainly been in this position before, and they've more or less mocked the fans who are ready, or the sports radio, wherever you want to say, is reacting or overreacting to brush themselves off. So yeah, certainly a test of their resilience.
They play so well at home this season, and they, especially like on Friday and Saturday nights, they really amplify as far as their game when the stadium is packed. And it's going to be a very packed Rate Field over the weekend. Saturday's game is completely sold out, not just tickets, but also parking as well. Could be close to 40,000 fans on Saturday. It's going to be more than 35,000 on Friday. So if the White Sox bats jump out quick, if Noah Schultz can lock it down, Rate Field could be rocking this weekend. And that's exciting for us because before this season started, we picked a weekend that didn't have anything going on to celebrate our 20th anniversary at Sox Machine. And lo and behold, as the season progressed, it became one of the most popular weekends of the season. That wasn't our intention. But if you are in Chicago, and many of you are visiting the South Side this weekend to hang out with us, we greatly appreciate it. But if you're just hearing this for the first time on the live stream, we are celebrating our 20th anniversary this weekend. We're going to be starting tonight, 4 p.m. Central Time at the Remova Theater Beer Garden. That's off 35th and Halstead. It's also right across the street from Electric Funeral. We might be stopping over there as well. So a mini bar crawl before getting to the stadium. It's sweet night for our Sox Machine Veterans Committee. So it'll be great hanging out with our VC members and our friends. And then Saturday, we're going to be hosting a pregame tailgate. And right now, the parking lot's going to open at 4:15 p.m. Central Time. First pitch is scheduled at 6:15. Ozzie Guillen's retirement jersey ceremony is scheduled for 5:15. So it's not a very large window. So if you're using rideshare or public transportation to get in Rate Field, we'll have our tailgate spot set up at 3:45 p.m. Central Time. We'll have some beer. There'll be some high noon. There'll be some bubbly as we celebrate the 20th anniversary. I got cupcakes, Jim. So I promised cake, and there'll be cake at the tailgate. But again, Lot E, and follow us on social media as you'll get more news as well in case of the White Sox do change anything as far as their plans on making the parking lots open, or if they decide to open the gates earlier to get as many fans in the stadium as possible to watch Ozzie's retirement ceremony. So can't wait to see everybody. And that will do it for this episode of the Sox Machine podcast being live streamed. And again, this is a video podcast now, so please subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Sox Machine. If you can't watch the video and you just want to listen to us, you can listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts, such as Spotify and Apple Music. Follow us on social media. We're on all the social media platforms at Sox Machine. James will be at the games this weekend covering them for us. You can follow him at JR Fegan. We're expecting White Sox General Manager Chris Getz to speak to the media pregame, so definitely follow him on social media to get the latest updates. And you can follow me at SoxMachine_Josh. And if you enjoy our work and want full access to all of our coverage of the Chicago White Sox and Major League Baseball, sign up to become a Sox Machine subscriber at SoxMachine.com/products. We're still running our first month sale that's based on the White Sox winning percentage. And then afterwards, it's just $5 a month. So take advantage of that sale. Go to SoxMachine.com/products and sign up today. The Sox Machine Live is a production of SoxMachine.com. You're on for all things Chicago White Sox baseball and part of the Foul Territory Network. Alongside Jim Margulis and James Fegan, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for watching and listening.